Hi, and welcome to the SJ Child Show. The SJ Child Show brings value to families through education, resources, and lots of laughs. You can find us on our social media pages Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and all of your favorite podcast platforms. You can also find our special children's books at sjchilds.org. This month is April Autism Action Month. All of our guests in April will be autism warriors, and we are celebrating them and bringing this to the forefront. Enjoy the show. Hi, and welcome to the SJ Child Show. I'm your host, SJ Childs, and today I have a special guest, Andrew Chris. He's coming from Utah and where I'm at as well. So we're enjoying the same warm and chilly weather at the same time. Hi, how are you, Andrew? I'm so glad to have you here today.
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I really want to talk about your really great program that you have for families and most importantly for dads. It's something that I don't think there's enough it's not on the forefront enough in our communities, and there's not enough resources, I think, or people don't know how to find these kinds of resources. So let's help them out by giving them a little input, right?
Yeah, sounds great to me.
Yeah, tell us about your what got you started and the name of your company and things like that.
Yeah, so currently I run a company called the Life Empowerment Organization, and it's kind of like a dream project of mine, really. So I've been in the mental health field for years. I'm also a couple and family therapist and stuff, and I worked for Head Start, and that's kind of where my passion for dads began. Working with dads was I noticed there wasn't a lot of dad involvement. So we'd have a lot of moms dropping off kids and stuff, but there wasn't a lot of dads. And it's well known in the research that if dads are involved in academics, kids do much better. So a fellow colleague and I actually started a fatherhood program there. And it just kind of grew from there. I started working for a local university, teaching fatherhood classes in the community, and then transferred into therapy and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? I kind of want to be my own boss, you know?
Yeah.
So I started my own company. I also became a stay-at-home dad to help take care of my son and my daughter. And I was like, this is like the perfect opportunity to make it happen. So that's what we're doing.
Oh, I love it. I think we're along the same lines at that, in that we just have passions, follow them, make them happen, and we're going to be world changers because of it. Darn
Exactly.
it. Set it up the way we think it should be set up for our future generations to have success and empowerment. And let's talk about that. Tell us about what type of services that you provide with that program.
Yeah, for sure. So we're in some ways we kind of try to be like a one-stop shop, if that makes sense. We cover personal growth, couples, and parenting with the fathers involved. And part of why we do that is because we feel like even if you're a parent, if you have a partner, your relationship's got to work for the parenting to work, or if there's stuff going on inside, you know, that you need to kind of connect with yourself a little more. And so we do that. And we do that through online courses, or we do coaching over Zoom. So you don't even have to come to my house or anything like that.
Yeah.
You can just stay in your house in your pajamas. I don't even care.
That's great. We all know we're not wearing pants. No, I'm just kidding. It's the great.
I can
Zoom
neither
joke
confirm nor deny that, right?
Exactly. I plead the fifth. That's fantastic. Yeah, that's great. Like I said, that's such a great program and important resource. And you know, I love Head Start and what it provides for children and that process for the community. Very important. And so what a great place to start and kind of see that need for dads to be involved. What are some of the some advice you might give to a new dad that's in your program to start integrating more into a family setting if he's not doing that?
Yeah. You know, speaking from my own experience and from those I've worked with as well, it seems like it's this big draw to suddenly get to your job, provide financially and stuff like that, which is important. But I also talk about you got to provide in other ways. You need the emotional and, the social and stuff. So start building a relationship with your kid. All of our stuff is built on relationships, everything we do. And so I think sometimes dads get really stuck in the how do I do this and the mechanics of it. And it's like build that connection first.
Mm-hmm.
Even if that's all you do right off the bat, just get there, because it's going to, depending how strong your relationship is how effective you'll be as a dad.
Mm-hmm.
So if I go straight to work and I'm not spending time with my infant, it's not really growing that connection. And so sometimes I just work with them on, let's not just look at jobs or financial security. What else do you provide? And make sure you're providing that as well.
Yeah. And, I think that a lot of times it's kind of this traditional or old generational mindset that's where the dads need to be and where, the women need to be in another place. We don't live on those kinds of presets anymore, do we?
No, not really.
Yeah, we really need to defunk that, get rid of those and really look at what our family dynamics are now, in that we have much more father, activity kind of closeness and an acceptance of that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's a big thing too, is for dads to, realize that being part of the family and having that close relationship, it's not a sign of weakness or a sign of, unmasculinity in any way. It's really a sign of emotional maturity and emotional intelligence, and setting your family and your kids up for the best success they can have.
Absolutely. And I haven't worked with one dad that's like, oh, I want my child to go nowhere in life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every dad that's involved and wants to be involved wants the best for their child. And I think, getting that old mindset out of place, like it's not just jobs anymore. And I think sometimes that social support kind of says, like that's what dads do. And it's like, we're so much more though.
Yeah.
If you genuinely want to set your kid up for success, be there. Presence is huge. Be there. So,
and what kind of maybe issues or challenges do maybe single dads come up to in that setting? Like, how could they put their best foot forward to make a bigger difference in a kind of a split household situation?
Yeah, that can be a tough one too, especially if we're bringing in, kind of some legal considerations, which is not my topic.
Yeah.
So I don't deal with that, but definitely I think there is a rise in single dads. We are seeing more of that, and a lot of dads are not familiar with children. They didn't grow up babysitting or things like that. I was kind of spoiled. My sisters would take me with them when they babysitted. So I've been around kids forever. Got to, change diapers when I was 12 and all that good stuff. So I think there's times that men are uncomfortable with some of that stuff, and just being open to learning new things, and that it's okay. You don't have to have the answers. We tend to be problem solvers and think we have to have the solution. And it's okay to say, I don't know what to do right now. Where can I go find that answer?
Yeah. And, that gives me a great idea in you saying that. And why not ask your kid, if they're age appropriately old enough, what type of interests do you have? Because a lot of times once again, that old mindset of parenting, we, no, I don't like that you're reading comic books. No, I don't like that you play video games or play too much on the computer. Instead of not liking it, why don't you try spending 15, 20, 30 minutes a day? Show me on the computer what it is that you like to do. Show me this Minecraft house that you've been building and show me the types of blocks or whatever that you're using. If you don't know anything about it, you should learn, right? As a parent.
Absolutely.
Because even giving your children just that little bit of time in their world, looking at their interests, the confidence and the trust that it builds with you is insurmountable.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And even when I work with moms, not just dads, I talk about that. Enter your children's world. Let them direct it. Get to know them. I think about my son loved dragons, which was cool, but he was like obsessed with dragons. And after a while, it was like, oh, I'm tired of dragons. But he loved them. And so we made sure, my wife and I, that we would spend time each day playing dragons.
Mm-hmm.
And it's exactly what you said, the way the child thinks about themselves, like, oh, what I like matters. That must
Mm-hmm.
mean I matter, that kind of
Yes.
stuff. Absolutely. I think one of the biggest changes, especially in dads, I see is they want to play football or whatever with their kid, but maybe their kid's more into art. And
Yes.
so they're like, well, we're spending one-on-one time. And it's like, but does your kid enjoy it?
Yeah.
Because if they don't, it's not doing as much for you as it could be.
Yeah, definitely. And probably a lot, I'm sure that so many parents struggle with discipline, right?
Mhm.
And how to properly discipline kids. And I'm not going to lay out the proper discipline guideline here or anything for anyone. Everyone's different in their households and respectful, experience and such. But, you know, not guilting or shaming your child for having an interest outside of your own, those things are detrimental to children. Those are traumatic. Those things, can put a lot of discord on a relationship. And so try to refrain from those types of things, and probably something that you also talk about.
Definitely. And part of why I address that with any parent I work with is, especially the younger your child is, the way you talk to them is how they start to talk to themselves.
Yeah.
So if we're very critical or shaming, guess what they're doing inside?
Yeah.
And they take that with them into the future. And it's like, that's not the voice I want to leave in my kid's head.
Absolutely.
I want them to feel like, yeah, what I like matters, who I am matters, because I have worth. And it's little things that we don't always think about. Like you're saying, sometimes we don't even mean to shame it. It's just, well, I don't like Pokemon,
Yeah.
but they love Pokemon.
Yeah.
To you, it's not a big deal. To them, it's huge. Their world at that moment is Pokemon.
Exactly.
And you just said, eh.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
Yeah. You have to make sure you're just building them up in all of their strengths. And that way, when you come across weaknesses and challenges, it's easier to navigate those if you have the strengths to kind of lean on as well. Let's pivot the conversation a little bit to an interest that you and I both have, and a passion, and that is autism. And you and I both have, you have a son on the spectrum, and I do as well as a husband and two daughters. So I like to say our, life is everything autism in my home, and it's beautiful chaos.
Beautiful chaos is a great way to describe that.
Yeah. Tell me about your son is 6, you said. What are maybe some, because every child's presentation of autism is different. What types of signs did you and your wife start to notice to give you those ideas?
Yeah, and so our son's journey's been, and we're still on this journey of getting it locked down and stuff like that, but it's been different because every professional that's worked with him is like, he doesn't present typically, but our first major sign was his communication. He would talk to us as Curious George. So when he was 2, he wouldn't really use words, but if we could find like the episode of Curious George that he was running in his head, we could communicate. Otherwise, like, it was just this big gap. And then he would have explosive tantrums, hours long tantrums, not just like 5-10 minutes. We're talking 3+ hours at times.
Yeah.
So, and he was very physical. He would run into things, and he still does, But those were kind of our first ones. So we got him into like early intervention and stuff like that. And he did SPED preschool for 3 years. He's a September baby, so he got an extra year before starting
good.
School. Yeah. And so, but we've just kind of continually seen that very, very rigid in the way he approaches life, which can be very frustrating at times as a parent. It's that beautiful chaos. You love the kid and stuff. There are times that our worlds do not line up and they don't line up at all,
It's hard.
So it does get really difficult, but yeah.
You just take it one day at a time. And I think especially when you're in the earlier stages, my son is now 11, so I'm going on a decade-long, autism journey so far with him, and 5 years of recognizing in my husband as well, and now being able to kind of match the similarities a little bit more and see, okay, Well, if you were able to kind of overcome these types of things, then in hopes, right? Our
Hmm.
son will also, and even though they're, like nobody's the same anywhere, whether you're
Right.
typical, neurotypical, it doesn't matter. Um, and so their processes were different, of course, but it still gives you that idea of hope, and then that idea that okay, I see all of these successful autistic, adults now that have their own businesses and, all of these wonderful things. And I think these are the types of steps that I now need to take with my son to try to, just help him where he's at now. But I hope that someday he can get to those other places and things like that. What kind of you said that in your program it's kind of all integrated, so do you have kind of like, if you have a special needs child, this is more of something you would follow, or is it basically just generalized for everyone?
Yeah, so some of that's going to be I'm going to ask up front, with the person what kind of are the circumstances and stuff. And if that comes up, I'm going to tailor it a little more
Yeah.
specifically. A lot of the skills I work on, I'm very parent focused because I go under the notion that I can't control my child, I can only control me.
Yeah.
It's the same for every parent. So if you can change what you do, you can influence the situation with your child.
Yeah.
But I know for me, and I won't speak for my wife, but I do feel like she'd agree. A lot of the work we had to go through was on ourselves, how
Oh
to
yeah.
manage ourselves and what our expectations were and how to present and how to talk or know when, like, I need to step out of this, like, this is not good, I need to step
Yeah.
out. And so I work that into the program too. I really get to know what is the parent's experience,
Hmm.
because it is true. Every child presents so differently. I've had some parents that are like, yeah, I have a kid, but I mean, it's really not that big deal. And then others that are kind of like mine that are like, my kid yells for 5 hours. What do I do?
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so I do try to tailor it to that, what are the needs in the home, but the general principles are going to be similar. The
Yeah.
tools to get there might be slightly different, but those principles of keeping yourself as level as possible or knowing when you've reached your limit, which I think for any parent is critical. You have to know your breaking point of, I need to get out of this situation.
Isn't that the truth? No, I do totally agree. And similar to that, in the beginning of our journey, we really had to focus and change our language because negative terms, no, don't, stop, can't, those were triggers for our son for meltdowns, big
Yep.
triggers. So we had to teach grandparents, we had to teach teachers, we had to, just teach them all, look, we could use different language that has the same effect. Not the same effect, you know what I mean? The
The
effect of,
same idea.
yeah,
It
exactly.
sets the limit, or yeah.
Exactly. We went the preferred behavior, but when we use this language, it sets him off differently. So we had to like really take a step back and look at our language because, and another thing you said, the rigidity. Our son is very literal. And I remember a time when him and his little sister, who's 2 years younger than him, were out and we had an old chair that we had just put outside and a paint palette and said, okay, paint the chair, just have fun and just paint all over. Well, our son heard paint the chair. So when his little sister was madly rushing around throwing paint all over this chair, he was in the most stressful situation trying to recreate every color she was putting on this chair, painting a chair on the cardboard with all those colors she was adding. And it was at that kind of in those moments that we were like, oh my gosh, like he didn't understand,
Mhm.
throw the paint all over the chair to have fun and be free and creative. He was so stressed out because she was moving so quickly,
Yeah.
and he couldn't keep up with all these colors, and it stressed him out so bad. Bless his little heart. And it's just that just shows that strict, literal sense. Since then we've been so lucky with through ABA and just on his own, he's taken up a liking for things like idioms, and some language, rules that don't apply to his literal thinking that
Right.
now give him such flexibility
in conversations with people. And he's picked up this term lately where you'll say, hey, what you doing? What are you working on? Are you doing okay? And he'll say, yeah, kinda. It's, kinda is just not his kind of thing.
It's too gray area. There's too much. Yeah.
But I love it. I think that he should play around with those kinds of things, and have fun with it.
I remember one time it was raining really hard, and I can't remember if it was me or my wife, but somebody was like, it's raining cats and dogs out there. And our son sprints to the window and he's like, I don't see any cats and dogs,
Yeah.
Whereas, and we were like, oh, like he's picturing in his head cats and dogs coming out of the sky.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to, when you realize those types of things, you really have to be careful with your language, or lucky for us, teach them idioms, teach them the different types of flexibility that our English language has, and strictness, right? It's crazy. But yeah, I think that's fantastic. Behaviorally, it's so different from a neurotypical to a typical family, and the needs that they have and everything. What are some maybe activities or steps that you give to parents on both sets of that?
Yeah, and in terms of just how to have those interactions with the behaviors.
Yeah.
Yeah. One, it's going to kind of go back to that earlier discussion we had of enter the kids' world. I think especially with our son, that was huge. The more we tried to fit him into our world, the more we saw the explosions.
Further. Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the first things. And it can be, I don't know about you, but sometimes our son has just, I hate to use the word bizarre, but just strange things that he's fascinated with. So he loves Halloween decorations.
Inanimate things. Rather. Yeah.
Yeah. And so our son loves Halloween decorations, and he draws them and he makes them out of all these toys, and he wants to hang them in the window, and we have to tell him, in October that would be expected, but right now that's unexpected, because we had a child hanging in our window. We didn't want anyone calling.
Yeah.
And so that's the big one, is entering their world, getting to know them, because that's huge.
What if you had Halloween corner, and there was just a corner in your house that he could do his Halloween stuff?
Oh, our son definitely has a few different corners.
I bet.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is it's not shutting it down. It's opening those areas where, if we're going to do it, let's do it over here. Where,
you have to set those boundaries, even for kiddos on the spectrum, and they're hard to set boundaries of those kinds of things. With our new studio and things like that, we had to implement, there's no food in this room, because we can't stop the kids from entering a room in the house unless we put a padlock on the outside. But we're not going to do that. But we had to implement rules like that, and surprisingly enough, they've been following them, and I'm so glad, because they don't follow them in the rest of that. There's all the other ones, but for some reason this rule has taken foothold. So I like it. That's funny.
Well, and I think on top of that, we've had so many visuals. We've got stoplights around in our house that say stop, think, and choose, to really that visual reminder, because they're very reactive.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, that's how my son is. It's very reactive, and it's to us it's zero and impulsive. Yes. And it can feel 0 to 100 in the blink of an eye. But part of that is because his brain's like a cell phone. He's got apps running in the background that he doesn't understand, but it's still internally, causing stuff. So to us, it seems like, whoa, where did that come from? To him, it's been running. So
I love that. That's a great way to look at it, because our son has a photographic memory. And so he'll come in talking about computer codes, or, like you said, just things that aren't conversation topics, that they're just random bits of information that we'll never be able to use. But it's important to him that he knows these 16 million color codes and their processes to use in his information, whatever.
Our son, so he's 6, but he knows, he's never seen Star Wars, but he knows, like, in one of the episodes there's what's called a sarlacc. That's where they try to drop like Luke Skywalker into it or whatever. He knows all these facts about it.
That's so
What it
interesting.
eats, how long it takes to digest, all of it, but he's never actually seen Star Wars.
Yeah, that's incredible, isn't it? It's the funniest thing how they just get fixated on these certain interests and really find out more facts than you could ever have imagined. Like,
Oh.
I couldn't repeat it, but I now know Nintendo's the guy who created Nintendo, and he loves Japanese, and so he'll write his little messages in Japanese and stuff, and because Nintendo's creator was Japanese, and so everything is just like spins around their world. And I love that you said it's like a cell phone with apps always going in the background.
Yep.
It's so true.
And they'll open one expecting that we're with them.
Yes.
And that's fine, and I think as a parent sometimes you have to like calm yourself and be like, okay, yeah, I don't know where we got there, but I'm just gonna roll with it.
Yes.
Because if I don't, I just created a problem for no reason. Exactly.
Yes.
For no reason other than I just didn't know where that came from.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I really like the way you said you have to be able to know your own kind of your line or your triggers, your mindset, because there's kind of some categories. There's like where you're having fun and then it's getting a little bit heightened. It's like a color change chart, right? We have like red, yellow, green, and green, you're doing great. Yellow, it's getting like a little bit stressful. And maybe you're seeing some triggers or some heightened, activity or something. And then you have to really recognize once you step over into that orangish and down into that red zone,
yes,
where you need to stop reacting in all fashions, right? You have to literally just be like, okay, how am I going to calmly move forward with this? And like you said, model the correct behavior for them to know, okay, in this moment, I'm going to take deep breaths like my mom is doing. That's what we do. We're like, and we make these dramatic, physical deep breath movements, or we say, let's take a yoga pose or something, and to him, that's like, okay, this is getting out of hand. And so maybe I can draw it back. But sometimes they just cross that line and there's no coming back from it until it's over.
Yep. And that does happen. And I think as a parent too, you have to recognize there are times you can do as much as you want, but they're still going to hit the red.
Yeah.
Just because of the way they experience the world and just all of that. There's only so much you can influence. We try to look for that yellow zone so we don't get into the orange or red.
Yes.
But there's times it does not take much momentum and it's fast.
Yeah.
But definitely we do that same thing where we make it kind of exaggerated so it stands out to them. We did dragon breathing. Again, he loved dragons.
I love that.
And so we found a way to make it click with him.
Yeah.
Because he loved dragons. So he knows like, oh, I'll just breathe in and then I'll like pretend I'm throwing out fire, that kind of thing. And so that worked really well for him. But I think for me, learning my limits was huge because it doesn't take much to push them into that red if they're there. So if I react, oh, he's right there with me.
Yeah. And it's almost like he's like kind of suffering along because he's like, wait, I don't even know how I've lost control. Like their children don't have the experiences that us as adults have to be able to say, whoa, I've made it past that point. It's going to get worse from this. Yeah. It just gets worse for them. And that's so sad.
It is, and we've been working, we noticed pretty early on too, about 3 years old, he has a separation between understanding his body stimulation and his mind. Like he could think something, but then he'll be like, no, I'm happy, but he's got fists.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that doesn't add up. Like when we're happy, we don't throw fists, Yeah. And so we've had to, and we're still working with him on that, how to integrate what he's feeling inside, because it's so different. Whereas with our daughter, who is more neurotypical, there's a lot more congruence between what she's saying and her body language, and she's picking up on all these cues and stuff that just goes right over his head.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
know, and there again, there's nothing wrong with that. That's just where we're at, you know.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, kind of really demonstrate it. Modeling is huge. It's big for any kid,
Mm-hmm.
but for these children especially, they take it in, and they're memorizing every detail. Like, not
Yes.
just like, they're watching what you do with your eyes, your hands, and like all of it. It's
Yeah,
kind of fun to watch them try it out, you know,
yeah.
every now and then.
Yeah, I
But
agree. And one thing that I'm kind of trying to put out into the world that we really, really need to change is our language around the diagnosis. Our language, not yes to our children, but I mean in the medical, in the field that disorder. Like, I hate the word disorder. I think it is a disservice to everyone that they label with that, because what I see, and from all of my experience with autism, it is a reorder of thinking. It's a different thinking process.
it's just a different structure.
And I just hope that we can like push that into, let's do away with those kinds of languages, because those languages are hurtful to our children. When we say that they're disabled and that and I'm not saying that, getting social security, isn't necessary for your family. That's not at all what I'm saying. But I just hope that they could maybe change the language to be a little bit more friendly and a little bit more positive to everyone.
Well, I know my wife and I talk all the time that there's things about our son we're jealous about,
Mm-hmm.
because he lives his true self. He's
Yeah.
not worried about, what's going on with how others view him, because one, he just doesn't even calculate.
No,
He
I
is
agree with
ugh.
that 100%. Like, what would it be like to have a brain where you didn't judge others and you didn't, more importantly, you didn't judge yourself?
Yeah.
Wow. Right?
Yeah.
How could that be? As he's gotten older and he's, now 11 and probably on the precipice of puberty, we're now seeing a
Scary
little
time.
bit, yeah, definitely, a little bit more self-reflection and a little bit more self-awareness of maybe his body and things like that. And that's neat to see, because he's 11. It's been years of, like you said, kind of talks through riddles and puzzle masterpiece. That's what I am, the puzzle master. Who can, uncode any type of language he throws at me. After a while, you figure it out finally. But yeah, it's a journey I never expected to take in my life. But I would never ever not do it again.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It's definitely a much different journey, where my wife and I have said the exact words you just said. Like, it's not what we expected, but man, we would not give it up for anything. Like, he's our boy and we love it. And like I said, there's so many things about him that we're like, God, how amazing would that be if we could just shut that off and be like that?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm with you, unfortunately, because of insurances and stuff, based on my experience in the mental health world, we have to have that for, so people will be reimbursed. But it's hard because, like you said, it's filtered into our everyday world, where we see these kids as well. They've got these disorders, and they have this different way of seeing
challenges.
the world. But they also have a lot of strengths to them.
Mm-hmm.
There are things my son does that I'm like, what? Like, how did you do that? Like, I would have freaked out and been out the door, but he just sits down, and especially if it's passion to him, again, they live their true selves so much better than I think a lot of us do. So why is that a bad thing?
No, I don't think so. I think that, and I'm, probably a little bit of a unicorn out in the world to say this, but I think it's a evolution. I think with the numbers rising as quickly and as dramatically that they are, we really need to think of it as that, as this is a new way our brain is developing. It's exciting.
And it's definitely changing. And I think even we've only been in it for a few years, and maybe it's just our social circles are changing a little bit.
Yeah.
But I've even seen it in my professional side. The way even professionals are conceptualizing things is very different. We're not seeing these children as like, oh, this is a life death sentence kind of thing.
Exactly.
It's not okay. They can't reach this, so don't even try. It's like, no, it just maybe takes a little more effort, and their journey is going to be different. But yeah, still hold a high expectation, but then teach them how to get there.
Yes.
Don't just assume they can't. Like, teach
Yeah.
them how to reach it. And I think that's been a huge shift in the field.
Yeah, measurable goals, right? Definitely. I agree with that. Well, before we leave, I want to let you say where we can find you, your website, social media, places like that.
Yeah, for sure. So easiest place is the website, empoweringthejourney.com. We love it. It's also the name. We also have a podcast that's called Empower Your Journey. So that's
Fantastic.
always fun. Yeah. So come listen if you'd like.
Absolutely.
You can find us as the Life Empowerment Organization on Facebook. You can find me. Good luck. Andrew Chris is a pretty common. You get Andrews and Chris's and Christians and all that stuff. So, I mean, good luck. But you can find me. And then on Twitter, I'm the Empowered Father. So it's always fun. So.
And I'll make sure to have all of that links down in the description so you know where to go and find Andrew and his empowering programs for families and most importantly for dads. The dad resource that dads didn't know was out there for them. So bravo to you on those things. I'm so grateful to have you here today and to have such a wonderful discussion with you. I think we covered some fantastic areas and topics. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. This was great.
Yeah. And we will definitely be staying in touch. Like I said, maybe around Father's Day, we'll have you back on to talk more about that program you have coming up.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to.
Great. Thanks. I'm so glad to have you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Kind of guy that keeps you warm at night when you are cold. I'll grab some blankets from my bed, wrap them around your chest, now pull you close. We'll flip some channels to find out there's nothing on right now to ease your mind. Sit back, relax, there is no rush, no need to speed things up. All we have is time to think about the future, forget about the past. Time to figure out a way to make this moment last, to make this moment last, to make this moment last. So let's make this the kind of love that we've been dreaming of when we sleep at night. We'll get a little house to live in, have a couple kids, and we'll sleep tight. Cause baby, all we really need are just a couple things to stay alive, and everything else in between. Just trust my heart, you'll see we're slowly coming. Time to think about the future, forget about the past. Time to figure out a way to make this moment last, to make this moment last, to make this moment last. sunsets, I won't let you forget that I need you. Spring comes and spring goes, forever you will know that I love you. Sunrises, sunsets, I won't let you forget that I need you. Spring comes and spring goes, forever you will know that I love you.